This is the Bethune-Cookman University Wildcat News Feed on Sirius XM, radio channel 142. HBCU, broadcasting from the Wildcat Lab in Daytona Beach, Florida. WELE 1380, The Cat. It's time to hear the good news from BCU.
Good afternoon and welcome to the BCU Wildcat Newsfeed, also known as #Talktuesday, the place where you get the real, raw, and relevant facts about what's going down on the campus of Bethune-Cookman University. And we certainly did not disappoint you today. I am your host, Franshawn Reed Barnes, and you are listening to WELE 1380 The Cat. Last week, after questions surrounding a $305 million dorm deal surfaced and a controversial 2017 commencement with Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos, the sixth president of Bethune-Cookman University, Dr. Edison O. Jackson, announced his retirement 6 months early. On Wednesday, July the 13th, the Board of Trustees selected a new interim president. That person was none other than former legal counsel for the university, Interim President Judge Hubert Grimes. Here to help us learn more about who he is, the state of the university, and how the university will look under his reign is President Judge Hubert Grimes. Welcome.
Thank you, Fran, and we're just glad to have an opportunity to be with you this afternoon. It actually feels pretty good sitting in this chair. I think for about 9 months or so, we were able to be hosts of a program entitled The Problem Solvers here at WELE 1380 The Cat. So this is really nice and get a chance to come in to my old stomping grounds.
Absolutely. Well, it is certainly a pleasure to have you here and to know that you are no stranger to solving problems and to addressing the BCU community. So, President Grimes, let's just jump straight into it. Can you tell us who is President Judge Hubert Grimes?
Well, I guess in terms of a background on myself, I'm a native Floridian. Grew up in Polk County, the capital, or should I say the county seat, Bartow. Did my undergraduate work at Kentucky State University, where I got a bachelor's degree in political science. Thereafter, went to University of Georgia Law School, where I obtained a Juris Doctorate back in 1980. Practiced with legal services for several years, founded the Central Florida Community Development Corporation, a nonprofit group that's still in existence even today, helping minority businesses and homeowners who desire new housing and the like. Then I started my own law practice, and then in 1988 I had an opportunity to run for, and I was successfully elected as the first African-American county judge. Served there for about 11 years. Then I was appointed to the circuit court by Governor Bush back in 1999, and then thereafter served there until 2014 when I retired from the bench and came to work at Bethune-Cookman as the director of the Center for Law and Social Justice. And again, interestingly, during that time period, this was one of the pieces that we did in that job, was to host the Problem Solvers radio show. And then in November of 2015, I was asked by the president to serve as university legal counsel. Served in that capacity until last Thursday, when I was announced as the interim or acting president of the university, pending the selection of the next permanent president.
Great. So on Thursday, July the 14th, the Board of Trustees announced you as acting president of Bethune-Cookman University. Can you tell our audience what qualifies you to lead Bethune-Cookman University in this season?
That's an interesting question. In fact, I said to some people earlier today in our cabinet meeting, I said that I'm a strong believer, strong God-fearing young man, believing in faith, which of course is one of the major tenets of our university. We always talk about our founder used faith in God and $1.50 to launch what is now Bethune-Cookman University. And of course, maybe there are some folks out there who say, well, he's not qualified to be president of the university because, he doesn't have the traditional academic background. And as I remind people, said, God doesn't always call the quote unquote qualified, but he definitely knows how to qualify the called. So for this season, I believe that all of my life experiences collectively will help me to be able to manage the resources and the direction of this university. I can also tell you that I spent about 7 years. Actually, my first teaching experience was actually at Bethune-Cookman when I started as an adjunct way back in about 1983. And then for approximately 7 years, while still serving on the bench, I served as an adjunct law professor down at Florida A&M University. So I'm no stranger to the college environment. And I think that a lot of what we do now is that looking at the university not just as an educational institute or enterprise, but it's a huge business or corporate enterprise. Our budget exceeds over right at $100 million a year now, over 600 plus full-time faculty and staff members, which means a minimum there's at least 600 families that are affected every day by the decisions that we make. And roughly about right at 4,000 students is what we anticipate for our incoming fall semester. So it's a business enterprise. At the same time, our business is education. And so I hope that we're able to convey that and to help to strengthen and renew the reputation and all the things that help to make us who we are. And I'll make one other comment about that, is that our university itself has about a $700 million economic impact here in Daytona Beach and Volusia County. And that right there is a huge impact. And so we cannot afford to lose our school. And while there was those who might have thought that the university was closing its doors, under no circumstances. We're moving forward. We're going to pick up the pieces. Whatever it is that we have to do in order to make this university ready for the next generation, we're looking forward to doing that.
I think you hit the nail on the head as I was reading a few articles, and I sat in the staff meeting last week. The chairman mentioned that they were very intentional on choosing you because of your relationships in the community with corporations. They said if they brought someone new in, it would take time to, build that relationship, but there was already a trust built with you and corporate partners in the community as well as alumni at BCU. So thank you so much for sharing that piece with us. Now, can you tell us, how will BCU look different under your leadership, and how will it differ from your predecessors?
Well, certainly when we look at the fact that I've been in this job since, I guess you can say since Friday, pretty much, there's still it's evolving. I met with our cabinet officials this morning. We're going to be looking at meeting with other stakeholders throughout as we put together the plan. We're going to do our best to build upon the strategic plan that the board has adopted and that is already in place. But we're going to do some tweaking. We're going to do some additions. We're going to do some things, I think, that will address some of the questions that have been raised. And hopefully, again, recognizing that we've got multiple stakeholders that we are dealing with, from our students to those who are employees, to those who are our alums, to people here in this community, to the business community, to the church community. All of these are part of it. So I'm going to be working particularly over the next 30 days or so, in terms of putting together where we're going and how we're going to get there.
What is the first action step you took as interim president of Bethune-Cookman University?
I think I was kind of pinching myself, trying to say, is this real? Is this real? I can't tell you that. It kind of reminded me of my becoming a judge, because when it first happened as a judge, I remember in law school, I had no idea, no clarity at all that that's what I wanted to do in this life. But I always believed that you work hard, you work diligently at the things to which you've been assigned, and then your work will speak for yourself. So I'm still in that evolving phase right now in terms of, what do you do first? What do you do next? I have sought counsel from some very trusted presidents of other institutions that I've known down through the years. And as we put together those ideas, I'm still in the investigatory stage. I'm still in the research stage. And I'm not going to, but, although at the same time, I've also noticed some things that I would personally like to see be addressed. For example, I truly believe that we've got to tell our story. We've got to do a better job of telling our story. We've got to do a better job of marketing the university. And for example, even our radio station and the resources that this represents, one of the plans I have will be to look at bringing in someone that can help us with marketing of our football program, marketing of other resources that we have within the university that I believe at this point have been undervalued because people are not aware of them. And so that's one of the things. So we got to tell the story. Again, we got to renew the hope that people have in the vision. One of the acronyms that I've adopted in this, just as it's evolving, is protect the vision, preserve the legacy. Protect the vision, preserve the legacy. What does that mean? Well, I believe that when Dr. Bethune had that visit with Mr. Gamble. He was of the Procter & Gamble family. And she asked him to invest in her dream. And she took him to a place where he thought he was going to see actually a building. There was no building there, but it was a garbage dump. And this was the land she had purchased from the city of Daytona at the time. And she said, I thought I was coming to a building. He said, where's the school? And her response back for her, it's in my heart. It's in my mind. And I truly believe that action in 1904, when she did that, was her looking 100 years into the future. I believe that's what a vision does. A vision will take you to places where only you can dream of. And so I believe that part of what we must do now is to protect that vision. In other words, her vision of wanting to educate young black kids, girls initially, and then later on girls and boys. And I think that's important, educating the next generation. Preserving the legacy means that there's certain things that have been traditions at Bethune-Cookman down through the years. And to preserve that legacy means those are the things that connect us together. Whether you were an alum from the class of 1944 or you're an alum of 2017, there ought to be some of that commonality that allows us to be able to embrace that. And then the second part of that piece would be the acronym TIP: transparency, integrity, and positive action. Transparency, integrity, and positive action. What does that translate to mean? We've got to be open. You know, we've made some mistakes as a university. We've made some errors. You learn from those. You know, you get up, you dust yourself off, and you learn from your lesson, and you keep moving forward. But that's the transparency, to learn the lesson, don't repeat the same mistakes again. Integrity, we tell the truth. We tell folks things the way they are. I remember as a judge that if you want to get in trouble with me when you're standing in front of me on the bench, tell a lie. I mean, I've had some horrible cases come in front of me, but people that were honest about what they had done tended to give more credence to me believing their story. And but on the other hand, if somebody lied, that was usually, in fact, one of my bailiffs would even announce to them, particularly when I was doing family drug court, say, okay, you try to deceive the court, you try to lie to the court, that's 180 days in the Volusia County Branch Jail. And that was just my way. I mean, I believe in trying our best to tell the truth. And then finally, the idea of positive action. That means I'm looking to you, Franchon, to tell me what it is that you're concerned about. But when you bring me a problem, I also believe you're supposed to bring me a solution so that we can begin to work together. And collectively, I believe we can turn this place around, and we can become that next generation that we've been asking, that our founder was expecting us to be. She said she entrusted this vision to us. And anybody that goes over to the statute there on ISB, you'll see that in some of her writings. She said, I leave you these responsibilities, to educate that whatever that generation is that we're facing with now. So my hope and expectation is that we're going to be able to live up to her vision.
I like that. So if the alum, staff, and faculty could expect one thing from your leadership, it would be TIP: transparency, integrity, and positive forward movement.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Now, President Grimes, there is no confusion that there are staff members, faculty members that are worried, even students, about the future of this university. What would you say to those who are just lost and confused and are experiencing some type of anxiety? Don't
give up hope. I mean, this university has survived some difficult challenges down through the years, but it's 114 years old. We're going into 2017, 113 years old, but going into our 114th year. And, there have been other issues. Let me give you an example. We have such a strong rivalry with Florida A&M. And and I always say that, but most of our families are a mixture of Rattlers and Wildcats. And so even in my own family, I got two daughters that went to FAMU, one daughter that went to Bethune-Cookman. My wife is a Bethune alum. And in fact, I always said if you were to cut her, she probably bleeds maroon and gold. And so within my own family, there is that. Now, why do I say that and why is it important? Back during the time of the Depression, FAMU, it was under President J.R.E. Lee at the time, FAMU actually sent truckloads of vegetables that were grown on their farms to Bethune-Cookman so that Bethune-Cookman could survive because of the relationship between President J.R.E. Lee and Dr. Bethune. And as a result of that, those two HBCUs are intertwined. And while we may be rivals on the athletic fields, when you look at how do we become that next generation to impact the lives of these young people, I truly believe that we have a duty and a responsibility. And if Bethune-Cookman has made it through the depression that I just mentioned, if it's made it through all some of the other difficult times and seasons when we've had, bad press, but yet we managed to come out of it, you know what? We're going to make it this time too. And we're going to push forward, and we're going to create that type of what I would like to refer to as that type of energy, so that people can say, hey, I want to go there. I believe my kids will get a good education going to Bethune-Cookman, because even when they make a mistake, they may fall down on their butts. But you know what? I was always told as a kid, you get up, you dust yourself off, and you keep moving forward.
I like that. Look at the history. So now I'm going to get into some of the hard questions that our audience wanted to ask on social media that they sent to us. As former legal counsel under the Jackson administration, many want to know, how did the $305 million dorm deal happen under your watch?
Well, actually, it wasn't under my watch. As you notice, I came in November 2015, and that deal had been approved, I think, officially back in April of 2015. There were certainly pieces of what has gone on, but the board approved it. I think the negotiations it certainly started around about 2013, I believe it was, roughly, and that process was ongoing. They did a RFP, a request for proposal, and as I understand from the minutes of the meetings that I've read, that they had 4 companies that responded to the RFP, and that the one that was selected is the one, of course, ultimately that built the dorms. And of course, yes, they realize now that there's some issues on the financial side. However, at the time, from everything that I've read, at the time, that was the best deal that was available. The housing stock at BCU was it was problematic at best. There were some issues, relating to some of the dilapidated dorms. In order for the school to grow, it needed new housing. And so there was a vote by the Board of Trustees. I believe the number was like 28-3 to go ahead and go with that project back in April of 2015. I would say also that most people that have built homes, individual private homes, they recognize that sometimes there's an overrun. And I don't know exactly if that's where all of these things were caused by, but we are looking into that. We actually have outside counsel that is assisting us with that. They've been retained for that purpose. But when you think about it for a moment, when people build a house, oftentimes the cost tends to come, it may end up being higher than what was expected. But what usually happens is within the first year, 2, 3 years, depending upon individuals, they will always go back out and try to do what? Refinance that construction loan into a permanent loan, or then get a better loan where the rate is better. And certainly in this instance here, we're tasked with the responsibility of trying to come up with a sustainable financial pattern. I think that we talked about with our current CFO, Dr. Angela Poole, we talked about how did they arrive at that number. Was it the board approved 72.1, 85 was a number that we are told we booked on our books with our auditors. And so the question was raised, and she said, there are a couple different ways that could have occurred. They said they could have looked at the quote-unquote lease payments that are being made for the number of rooms times the number of years, and they could have backed into that number. We're not sure yet, but we are doing the research. We're going to continue to work with outside counsel. And just for the benefit of those who have asked for this question, will you retain forensic examination of the finances? Yes, absolutely. We need that in order to clear the air. If there's any problems there, then we'll know. If there's any wrongdoing, we will know. And but on the other hand, if it turns out that this is just a financial deal that was the best we could get under the circumstances, then we'll look to those auditors and examiners to be able to give us that information, and then we can share with the public exactly where we are. But at this point in time, it's the buildings are up. We've had students occupying the buildings now for just about a whole year, and so we're going to just keep moving forward to try to do our best. We got other areas of our campus that we're going to have to continue working on. It's been an interesting year. Looking back, we had storms, we had hurricanes, and a lot of the hurricane recovery efforts ended up being coordinated out of our office because we handle the risk management and insurance. And Hurricane Matthew came through and did us a whopper. We had a number of buildings that were damaged in the storms. And so some of the resources that we've had to use have been to assist with those repairs. We've currently replaced 3 roofs, I believe, at this present time. And we're expecting that over the next several months, we will continue to do that as our resources are made available. We also have insurance, thank God for that, and that's helping too. And then, of course, we had 2 other dorms, Moore and Thompson, that were affected. Ended up having to gut those out because of some students, I guess we can't call it anything other than what it was. It was horseplay. And as a result of that, there was water that flooded the dorm. It would happen to happen on the 3rd floor. So then with the horseplay, it broke a sprinkler head off, and it flooded the dorm. It flooded amazingly, it flooded one dorm in November, I believe it was, and then less than a few weeks later, we had a similar situation happen in the adjoining dorm, and that also resulted in us having to shut those two wings of that dorm down, move about 240 young people off campus while the repairs and recovery has taken place. And right now we're on task to be able to open those 2 facilities back up in mid-August when our new students come back. So we're making progress, got a lot of work to do.
Great. So to clarify for our audience, there are plans on your part and the cabinet's part to look at paperwork, to do research on the deal, and if it shows that there is room for improvement, you will take the necessary steps
absolutely,
to do so.
Absolutely. We've actually already engaged a firm, like I said, to do the legal side, and then we've also are in the process of engaging a firm to do the forensic examination on the other side, on the fiscal side.
So according to the Daytona Beach News Journal, an annual hike in tuition is expected to pay for the interest on the new dorm buildings. Are there any plans to reduce tuition costs for students since the Jackson administration planned to have the students burden most of that cost?
Well, the tuition side is we had gone for a number of years without raising tuition, although our costs continue to go up. The tuition, of course, dollars are actually dedicated to the academic side of the house. The what we call room and board typically handles things like, the rooms that the people live in and the food that they receive. So the increase on the tuition side was really just to accommodate some of the costs that are adjusted to the academic side of the house. We're looking at, again, other options that we may have for the on the housing side. We've put on hold right now the plans for the new student center. That's on hold for now until we can get a better grip on where we are and looking at what other options we may have. So right now we're going to do our best to renovate as many of the buildings and properties on site and just continue to work forward as we try to make sure that it's a safe and habitable place for our students.
The number one question we're seeing on social media is BCU in jeopardy of closing?
No.
Great.
We've still got a strong endowment. And in fact, the monies that were taken out of the endowment that really generated a lot of the news media attention were actually from what we refer to as our earnings. None of the corpus of that fund were touched. None of the restricted dollars that were dedicated by donors for a particular use were touched. These were all monies from our earnings side of the capacity. And we are still pretty strong. We still have over a $40 million endowment fund. So, and then going forward, the board approved the budget for this year, and I can already tell you that Dr. Poole has given us great leadership in terms of showing not only how we can maintain and live within our budgets. The board adopted some 9 policies at this meeting last week, which will help us with being able to remain viable, will help us to improve so that we can monitor our spending. We've imposed things such as monthly reports and literally weekly reports, and she's had the technology as well as the professional experience of being able to make that happen. We are imposing new travel restrictions on, and so that we can make sure that we get our best bang for our buck. There will be some cutbacks. It goes with the turf. Every business has those ebb and flow moments. It's elastic. And so we are looking at that. Now, in terms of what exactly that will look like, I can't really answer yet because I'm still in the investigative and analytical stage. But I am meeting with our leadership to be able to formulate a plan. And we are also going to be in very regular contact with our board, particularly with our local board members. We have about 9 board members that are local here, even though a number of them live out of the area. Right now we have 28 board members. And let me just take a pause to say that one of our board members died over the weekend, Dr. Warwick Carter, out of Orlando. And so our prayers and our respect goes out to his family during this difficult period. But we think we have a good, strong team that can help us to move forward and address a lot of the issues that have arisen.
There have been a number of questions about excessive salaries and spending that have been published in the news, but I believe you gave us the answer to how you plan on stewarding that, which is with the current CFO and reviewing records. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I'm not quite sure. I mean, when I first read that news article, I was thinking, I'm not sure all those people that those numbers are correct. You know, certainly I wasn't included in that. But we are looking at all of those numbers. We're reviewing those. And again, we're working closely together. I have a good team of people that I've stepped into. And again, she made a number of recommendations to the Board of Trustees. And the board adopted those policies, and so we're going to work diligently to try to address, all of those issues wherever we can find savings, where we can find some revamping. We may be combining some positions. We may be even eliminating some positions that are no longer needed. But all of that's on the table. There's nothing off the table at this point. And again, I'm not coming in with a sledgehammer or a meat cutter, but coming in to try to do what needs to be done in a precise manner, and not to try to hurt anybody, but by the same token, recognizing ultimately my assignment is to protect the interests of the university.
With everything going on, why should a student consider Bethune-Cookman University at this time?
Bethune-Cookman University speaks for itself. I mean, the history is there, the longevity is there, the new programs. In fact, one of the things we talked about today was we've been approved for our MBA program now in the School of Business. The School of Business and Entrepreneurship has now been formally accredited by the Southern Association. We have new programs that are being developed. There's a strong history. I mean, the Wildcat football team is expected to have a great year. Both our men and women's basketball teams are looking up. I mean, Ryan Ritter is our new men's basketball coach, and he's had a great recruiting season. Vanessa Blair Lewis has done a great job with the women's program. Came within one game of winning it all. We won the conference, but we fell short when we got into the tournament. But I mean, those are the kind of things that to me are exciting. New programs, new ideas, looking for new partners, looking for some opportunities to do things that are in the whole science and technology area. Dr. Thompson, Herbert Thompson was one of those persons that was recognized by the White House for his work. There are research that's going on here, even research at Mosquito Lagoon. I did a little fishing down at Mosquito Lagoon over the years. In fact, they caught a nice little redfish down there that I took pictures of. I had to let him go, but nevertheless, I mean, the fact that our students are involved with that research to help promote and restore the lagoon, I mean, all of these things are exciting, and I really believe you'll get a world-class education. You'll be able to get a job when you go out, not just a job, but a career. And that's what we're working on. And in the process of it all, rebuilding some of those long-term legacy pieces that have helped Bethune to be the school that it is. And I really think that we're poised for greatness. We made some mistakes, but we learn from the mistakes, and we keep moving forward.
If all goes well, would you be interested in a permanent position as president of Bethune-Cookman University?
I just started on Friday.
You're so well known in the community. I've been watching the comments, and everyone's like, this is the right person. And they want us to ask, but it'll take some time.
Yeah, as I told a couple of board members made that comment, and I said, you know what, judge me by the work I do. If that turns out to be something down the road that they want to approach me about, then, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But in the meantime, my focus is not becoming the permanent president, but being the best acting president that I can be. And in that respect, to the listening audience out there, I look forward to showing up at your doorsteps and at your business offices and get a chance to ask you for your help. not just monetarily, but we need to develop more friends. We need to develop more internships for our students so they get a chance to be exposed to career opportunities. For me, the internship that I received coming out of my undergraduate experience set the stage for the rest of my career. And so I look forward to being able to knock on some doors, hopefully renewing some relationships that I have had, back with the Chamber of Commerce days. I actually was the Vice President for Governmental Affairs with the Chamber of Commerce before I went to the bench years ago. Looking forward to restoring relationships with the Rotary, restoring relationships with all of the various groups around this community that can, be engaged and help us to understand that this university is important. It's not just an HBCU. And some people tend to want to say, oh, it's just an HBCU. Well, what does that mean? No, this is a vehicle that impacts this university. It educates people. It's transformative. It helps people to accomplish things that they themselves may not have otherwise thought they could. And on top of that, when I look at, again, the economic impact in this community, $700 million and counting, if we were to lose that would be a tragedy, and we couldn't replace that. So my task is to help re-energize the various components, the various stakeholders, and to help us to be able to move the university forward.
Is there an expected goal date for naming the new president?
Well, usually the process typically takes about 12 to 18 months, some shorter, some a little bit longer. I served on a presidential search committee for my own university, Kentucky State University, and it took us a little over a year to get finally get to the person that they selected. And how this will work itself out, we've got some work to do, sort of like in terms of getting it ready for the new president. So the search committee had been named back in April. They had their first meeting already. They will I think they're scheduled for another follow-up meeting at the end of this month. And then depending upon how things move forward, will determine, the length of my stay in this role. And, again, we'll just see how things go as we move forward.
Great. Well, as we prepare to close out the show, I want to have a little bit of fun playing a game we call Talkback on Tuesday. And I'm going to give you two words, two choices.
You're giving a lawyer 2 words?
2 words.
2 choices?
Two
Oh, my
words,
God.
2 choices. And you have to choose the first one that comes to mind. Okay. BCU Homecoming or BCU Classic?
Wow. Okay. Classic.
Cafeteria food or takeout?
Do I get a chance to take it home with me today? BCU cafeteria food. Why not? Yes.
Great. Okay. And the final one is incoming freshmen or graduating seniors?
Wow. Graduating seniors. Mm-hmm. Why? Because those who come in, they gotta come in before they can graduate. And say, but the deal is that we want to help make sure we shepherd them through that process. Could I point out a graduating senior I was so proud of?
Yes, please do.
Just yesterday, Bethune is a co-sponsor of the Educational Justice Conference down in Orlando. This is the 3rd year, and I got a chance to hear from one of my daughters. She was a young lady that basically lived. She was back in the early 2000s. She was a member of the court. I'm talking about the Royal Court, not the Hubert Grimes Court, the Royal Court, and now she has been selected as the Dean of the School of Education for the University of South Florida. She had a chance to present yesterday, and I was just sitting there just kind of like glowing. She saw Daisy and I, and she came up and she said, "Oh, Mama Grimes and Daddy Grimes." She was so happy to see us, and guess what? We felt like proud parents. Because here was a young woman now who was a BCC alum, has risen through the ranks, went out to Oklahoma, and ended up being recruited, came back, and now she's head of the School of Education for the University of South Florida. So to me, those are the kind of success stories, and there are tons of those. And some of you out there in the listening audience, you probably know of some of those particular stories, and we want you to share those stories with us. And we'd like to let other youngsters know that, yes, God bless all the other schools out there, the Ivy Leagues and the Southeastern Conference and all those things too, but you can get a great education, a world-class education here at Bethune-Cookman University.
That is powerful. Do you have any final words that you would like to leave with our audience before we close the show?
Stay tuned.
I like that. Stay tuned. Well, you have heard it here first on the BCU Wildcat Newsfeed, also known as hashtag Talktuesday. I am your host, Fran Sean Reed Barnes, and we'll see you back here next Tuesday.